In the quiet, picture-perfect neighborhood of Willow Creek, life seemed as peaceful as any suburban dream could be. Neatly trimmed lawns, pastel-colored mailboxes, and white picket fences lined every street. But behind the serene facade, tensions were simmering, tensions that would soon explode over something most people would consider innocent: a dog. Meet Karen Mitchell, a resident known for her overbearing attitude, her meticulous obsession with neighborhood rules, and a reputation that stretched far beyond her cul-de-sac. Karen wasn't your average homeowner. She was the neighborhood watchdog, the self-appointed enforcer of HOA bylaws, and often the source of many viral disputes on local social media. But her latest target was not a noisy party or a crooked fence. It was her own pet. Max, a large and energetic Doberman, was Karen's pride and joy. To her, Max was more than a pet. He was a loyal companion and her ultimate security system. But to the HOA and several neighbors, Max was a ticking time bomb. Labeled as dangerous by some and intimidating by others, Max became the center of controversy that no one could ignore. The trouble began on a sunny Saturday morning when a neighbor reported that Max had barked aggressively at their young child. The complaint quickly snowballed as other neighbors chimed in about Max's intimidating presence near the community park. Fueled by gossip and fear, the HOA board convened a meeting that would set off a chain reaction. At this meeting, HOA officials presented what they claimed was overwhelming evidence. Max's aggressive behavior posed a threat to community safety. They argued that Karen had repeatedly violated pet regulations, including leash laws and noise restrictions. The board issued a formal notice declaring Max a public threat and demanded that Karen either remove Max from the neighborhood or face hefty fines and legal action. For Karen, this was more than a nuisance. It was an attack on her freedom and her bond with Max. The idea of giving up her dog was unthinkable. Max had been by her side through thick and thin, and she wasn't about to let the HOA dictate her life. But with the board firmly set against her, Karen was left with two options: comply or fight. What followed was a tense period of quiet defiance. Karen refused to sign any agreement to remove Max, and the HOA began escalating their tactics. Fines piled up, letters turned more aggressive, and rumors about legal battles swirled around the neighborhood. The tension that had been barely noticeable before was now palpable, turning neighbors against each other and creating a rift that extended far beyond just a dog dispute. Max, oblivious to the human drama, continued to patrol Karen's property with his usual mix of alertness and affection. But his presence had transformed from a comforting companion to a symbol of division in Willow Creek. This was no longer about a pet. It had become a fight for identity, community standards, and one woman's resolve to stand her ground. As the weeks dragged on, Karen's frustration grew. The HOA's stubbornness fueled her determination. But she knew that battling the board head-on would be a losing game without a clever plan. Something had to change. Something bold, something that would turn the tide in her favor and put the entire neighborhood on notice. And that's when Karen began plotting her ultimate comeback. A plan so unexpected, so hilarious, and so heartwarming. It would shake Willow Creek to its core and force the HOA to rethink everything they thought they knew about Max, Karen, and what it meant to be part of their community. But before that could happen, the neighborhood would have to endure a series of escalating skirmishes, viral social media moments, and a growing army of unexpected allies, all centered around one dog, one determined owner, and a battle that no one saw coming. With Max's future hanging in the balance and the neighborhood watching closely, Karen was about to show everyone that sometimes the best revenge is the one that makes you smile. After the HOA's formal declaration branding Max as a dangerous dog, the neighborhood of Willow Creek had turned into a powder keg of whispered rumors and split loyalties. The once tight-knit community was now divided into two camps: the HOA loyalists demanding safety and order, and the group rallying behind Karen and her beloved Doberman. Karen's refusal to comply with the HOA's demand only made things worse. The board, empowered by their perceived authority, doubled down on enforcement. Letters with increasingly stern warnings arrived in Karen's mailbox, threatening escalating fines, legal action, and even eviction notices if Max wasn't removed. The tone was cold and uncompromising, the sort of bureaucratic hammer that left no room for negotiation. Meanwhile, Karen's supporters, neighbors who knew Max as a gentle guardian rather than a menace, started quietly pushing back. They defended Max on social media groups, posting photos of him playing with kids, sharing testimonials of his calm nature, and calling out what they saw as an overreach by the HOA. The digital war was heating up, and it was just as fierce as the real one. At home, Karen was frustrated but undeterred. She began documenting everything: the HOA notices, neighbors' comments, Max's daily behavior, to build her case. But more importantly, she started to hatch a plan. If the HOA wanted a fight, she would give them one. Not with bitterness or anger, but with wit, strategy, and a touch of viral flair. The first step was to rally support from unlikely places. Karen reached out to local animal advocacy groups, community leaders, and even a few legal experts known for defending pet owners. Her story resonated. After all, who didn't love a determined dog owner standing up against an overzealous HOA? Word spread fast. Soon, the neighborhood was buzzing with rumors of Karen's comeback. Some residents were skeptical, while others quietly cheered her on. But the HOA board, sensing the growing opposition, doubled down on their tough stance, refusing to budge and painting Karen as a rule breaker who threatened the neighborhood's peace. Tensions reached a boiling point when the HOA sent representatives to Karen's property for an inspection, accompanied by a police officer. They claimed Max's behavior warranted immediate removal for public safety. Karen, standing firm, refused to let them in without proper legal authority. The standoff was tense and, predictably, became fodder for more viral videos shared by neighbors on social media. But Karen knew that emotional confrontations weren't enough. She needed something bigger, something that would turn public opinion and put the HOA on the defensive. And so, behind the scenes, Karen began setting the stage for a move that would shock the entire neighborhood. A cleverly orchestrated campaign to expose the HOA's hypocrisy and unite her community, one hilarious, heartwarming, and downright savage stunt at a time. Little did anyone know, the battle for Max was about to become the most talked about HOA drama Willow Creek had ever seen. As the HOA continued to tighten the screws on Karen, she realized the traditional methods, letters, meetings, and legal back and forth, weren't enough to win this fight. If she wanted to turn the tide, she needed a new strategy, one that would not only rally the neighborhood, but also put the HOA's heavy-handedness on full display for everyone to see. Karen's secret weapon? Max, her Doberman, wasn't just a dog. He was a symbol. So she decided to show the world exactly who Max really was. It started with a simple idea that quickly snowballed. Karen began posting daily videos of Max on social media. Clips showing Max playing gently with neighborhood kids, his silly attempts to catch his own tail, and even his dramatic doggy dance whenever Karen came home. These videos, shared on local community pages and spread by neighbors, quickly went viral. People from outside the neighborhood began weighing in, calling the HOA's dangerous dog label into question. But Karen didn't stop there. Knowing the HOA thrived on rules and appearances, she planned a series of clever stunts that highlighted their inconsistencies. For instance, she organized a Max Day in her front yard, inviting neighbors to bring their dogs for a community playdate. The turnout was massive. Children laughed and ran with dogs of all shapes and sizes, turning what had been a tense zone into a festive gathering. The atmosphere was joyful, exactly the opposite of what the HOA had been painting. Meanwhile, Karen started discreetly collecting evidence of the HOA's double standards. neighbors with unruly pets who were never fined, board members themselves bending the rules without consequence. She quietly compiled these stories and photos, ready to reveal the hypocrisy when the moment was right. Social media became her battleground. Karen's posts gained thousands of likes, shares, and comments from people outside Willow Creek who saw her as a relatable underdog fighting the system. Hashtag Max is not dangerous trended locally, sparking debates and forcing the HOA board to confront the growing wave of public opinion. The HOA's response was predictable but ineffective. They sent out official statements reinforcing Max's ban and accused Karen of harassment and undermining community safety. But their cold, formal communications paled in comparison to the warm, humorous, and heartfelt content Karen was putting out there. Inside the neighborhood, more residents started questioning the board's actions. Some who had initially supported the ban began to soften, attending Karen's events and engaging in conversations they'd previously avoided. The community was starting to heal the rift, not through forced rules, but through shared experiences and genuine connections. As Karen's campaign gained momentum, the board found themselves increasingly isolated and on the defensive. Their usual tactics of intimidation and enforcement were no match for the viral storm Karen had unleashed. The more they tried to silence her, the louder Max's story became. But Karen knew that the battle was far from over. This was just the beginning of a larger showdown, one that would soon reach a dramatic peak and force Willow Creek to redefine what safety, community, and justice really meant. With Max's charm winning hearts and her plan unfolding perfectly, Karen prepared to deliver the next, most unexpected blow to the HOA, one that would leave the entire neighborhood talking for years to come. Karen's social media campaign had already rocked Willow Creek, but she knew that viral videos and community events alone wouldn't be enough to topple the HOA's stubborn stance. She needed something bigger, something bold enough to expose the board's hypocrisy in a way that no one could ignore. That opportunity came when the HOA announced a strict crackdown on all pets following a new community safety policy. The policy wasn't just about Max anymore. It targeted everyone with pets, imposing harsh restrictions that many residents found unreasonable and invasive. Karen saw this as the perfect moment to strike. Her plan? A cheeky, yet perfectly legal, public stunt that would turn the tables and show the HOA just how ridiculous their rules could be. Karen organized a doggy parade through the heart of Willow Creek, a colorful, lively procession of every dog in the neighborhood, complete with costumes, banners, and upbeat music. Flyers went out, invitations were shared, and the event quickly gained traction online, with supporters from neighboring communities chiming in. On the day of the parade, dozens of dogs and their owners gathered, their wagging tails and happy barks filling the streets. Max led the pack, looking regal in a custom-made cape that read, "Not dangerous, just misunderstood." The mood was electric, equal parts celebration and protest. What made this parade truly savage, however, was Karen's surprise twist. She had arranged for the entire event to be live-streamed and recorded, capturing every joyful moment and the overwhelming show of community support for pets. The video montage contrasted sharply with footage from HOA meetings, where board members coldly discussed enforcement and threat mitigation. Karen's footage was warm, inclusive, and undeniable proof that dogs like Max were an essential part of what made Willow Creek a home. The local news caught wind of the story, and soon Karen's doggy parade was making headlines, not as a mere neighborhood event, but as a grassroots movement standing up to bureaucratic overreach. The HOA board, blindsided and humiliated, scrambled to respond. Some members grumbled about the event being a distraction, while others privately admitted they had underestimated Karen's influence. The once unshakable authority of the HOA now felt fragile and exposed. Neighbors who had been hesitant to speak out before found their courage. More voices joined Karen's cause, demanding transparency, fairness, and respect for the community's true values. The rift that had divided Willow Creek began to heal in unexpected ways, united by something as simple and powerful as a shared love for their pets. Behind the scenes, Karen wasn't finished. She had one final move planned, an act of revenge that wasn't about spite, but about reclaiming dignity, community, and the right to be heard. But before that, the HOA would have to reckon with the undeniable fact that Max and Karen had changed the game forever. After the wildly successful doggy parade, Karen's campaign against the HOA's oppressive pet policies reached a fever pitch. The community, once divided and wary, had rallied around Max and the idea that rules should serve the people, not control them. Karen's savvy use of social media, public events, and evidence of HOA double standards had not only embarrassed the board, but also forced a crucial conversation about fairness and compassion. But the HOA, desperate to maintain its grip, refused to back down. In response, they escalated their actions, threatening legal action, attempting to impose heavier fines, and even calling in security to patrol the neighborhood. The atmosphere grew tense, with neighbors unsure whether the conflict would end in bitter lawsuits or uneasy compromises. Karen, however, was ready. Drawing on her growing network of supporters, she enlisted legal counsel who specialized in homeowners' rights and animal advocacy. Together, they reviewed the HOA's pet regulations and found glaring inconsistencies and procedural missteps in how the board had handled Max's case. Armed with this information, Karen organized a community meeting that was unlike any Willow Creek had seen. It wasn't a dry HOA gathering full of jargon and threats. It was a town hall filled with stories, laughter, and heartfelt testimonies from neighbors about what Max and their pets meant to their lives. Karen made sure the event was recorded and live-streamed, capturing the unity and humanity missing from previous HOA board meetings. The overwhelming support for her cause created undeniable pressure on the board members, many of whom faced public criticism for their inflexible stance. Meanwhile, Karen's final revenge plan unfolded, a brilliantly orchestrated petition drive paired with a viral video montage that juxtaposed the HOA's heavy-handed tactics with scenes of genuine neighborly love and kindness. The petition called for the removal of the dangerous dog label from Max and a complete overhaul of the HOA's pet policies to be fair, transparent, and community-driven. The petition quickly gathered hundreds of signatures from Willow Creek residents and even caught the attention of local officials. The HOA board, facing mounting pressure and dwindling public support, had no choice but to call an emergency meeting. At this meeting, the board publicly acknowledged their missteps and agreed to revoke the ban on Max. They also promised to work with residents on revising pet policies that balance safety with the community's quality of life. For Karen, it was a hard-fought victory, not just for herself and Max, but for everyone who felt silenced by rigid, unfair rules. The neighborhood breathed a collective sigh of relief. The rift healed, and Willow Creek began to rebuild its sense of community, stronger and more connected than before. But this story wasn't just about a dog or a single HOA dispute. It was about standing up, fighting smart, and turning adversity into a rallying cry that united people in ways no one expected. With the HOA board officially retracting Max's dangerous designation and agreeing to rewrite their pet policies, the atmosphere in Willow Creek shifted dramatically. What had begun as a divisive conflict turned into a powerful lesson in community, resilience, and the power of one determined individual to spark change. Karen's victory was more than just personal. It became a symbol for all residents who felt overwhelmed by rigid HOA regulations and disconnected leadership. Her savvy use of social media, combined with grassroots organizing and undeniable community support, had rewritten the rules, not just for Max, but for the entire neighborhood. In the weeks following the board's announcement, Karen worked closely with HOA members and neighbors to help draft new guidelines that balance safety concerns with pet owners' rights and freedoms. These new rules emphasized communication, transparency, and respect, far from the heavy-handed approach that had ignited the conflict. Max, meanwhile, returned to being the neighborhood mascot, his once dangerous image replaced by countless photos and videos of him playing with kids, greeting neighbors, and even starring in a lighthearted community calendar celebrating local pets. His transformation was a perfect mirror of the neighborhood's healing journey. Karen's efforts also inspired others. Pet owners in nearby communities reached out, eager to learn how to organize and stand up for their rights. Social media buzzed with hashtags like hashtag #MaxTheHero and hashtag HOAReform, turning Karen's story into a viral case study on fighting unfair rules with creativity and courage. More importantly, Willow Creek residents rediscovered what had made their neighborhood special in the first place: connection, kindness, and a willingness to listen. The conflict that had threatened to tear them apart ultimately brought them closer, fostering friendships that would endure long after the dust settled. As for Karen, she emerged not just as a victorious dog owner, but as a community leader, someone who had turned a personal battle into a movement for positive change. Her savage comeback wasn't about revenge in the usual sense. It was about reclaiming dignity and proving that standing up for what you love can unite a community and change the status quo. In the end, Karen and Max reminded everyone that sometimes the fiercest battles come with the most heartwarming outcomes, and that every neighborhood has its heroes, even if they come with fur and a wagging tail.